Some people are worried about the 15-minute cities and all these other things that they say aren't happening, but we're marching towards. Now, for the mayor or for city council to sign an agreement with the federal government accepting money on zoning that we haven't even finished public hearings, that's in contrary to the Municipal Government Act. And so there could be, I think, there's jeopardy of some legal action on that.
Adam Soos here for Rebel News. Very happy to be joined by Councillor for Ward 13, Dan McLean. You know, among the myriad of unpopular things that the historically unpopular Mayor of Calgary, Mayor Gondek, has done, including the soon-to-be rebuked single-use bylaw, the botched arena deal, shocking property tax increases, as well as the declaration of a climate emergency, among other things, she is now pushing for a blanket rezoning of the city, which is drawing some controversy. I guess for folks first, before we get into your sort of call for a plebiscite and some of the other things you've sort of brought up, what does this blanket rezoning mean in practice for Calgarians?
Thanks, Adam, for the opportunity to explain this, because it is a bit confusing. So simply put, the base zoning in Calgary is for single-family home, R1 they call it. And if you wanted to change that and say, sell your house, or somebody could buy your property, knock it down and put up a fourplex or multiplex of some sort, they would have to apply for a zoning change to, say, R2 or RCG or different zoning things so that you build different housing types. Okay. So right now it's R1. So this would now upzone every single property to RCG, which means now before you would have, like I said, you had to go apply for a zoning change. You would have to come before council. There would be a public hearing. You could come and dispute it. Council would vote on it. Now that would be wiped out. It would be now RCG, and then automatically somebody could buy the property next to you, knock it down, and build a fourplex or a sixplex with basement suites without going through that process.
So, I mean, that for folks out there who maybe aren't aware, you can have an old sort of established community, people living there for decades, and all of a sudden you can have the house next door torn down, a sixplex put in, high residency housing that can bring up traffic, drive down values in communities, all of these things. What are the sort of main concerns for you as far as those types of things happening?
Well, first, the democratic process is taken out of it. I would not be able to have a say on it because density is fine. I mean, we all want to put it, but in the right places. So before it would come to council, or if we have older neighborhoods, like you said, where homes are at the end of life, they're downtown, they're next to transit station, they're next to schools and parks on major thoroughways. Yeah, that's where we put in a sixplex. But you're right. People are concerned then in their single family neighborhood, their forever home, their largest investment they probably will ever make. That could change and devalue their property. Parking's gone, trees gone, etc.
Now, you wanted this to be a plebiscite issue effectively during the next mayoral election expected around October 2025. You wanted Calgarians to actually vote on this. Let's talk about the rejection of that plebiscite proposal. But first, let's talk about why you thought it was such a crucial issue that it should be decided by plebiscite.
Well, simply because it affects every single resident, taxpayer, homeowner in the city. We've had plebiscites on, say, having the Olympic bid or reintroduction of fluoride into the water. Those are important issues, but not as important as this. And we do have public hearings on big items where you can come down and talk. As many as 200-300 people can show up. It could last a day or two or three. But what I've noticed is that a lot of these people that come down are from special interest groups, right. The same people over and over again. And the person that maybe it really affects might be working. They've got a job or they've got family to take care of. They can't make it down for 2 days and wait. So this is the way to get their voice heard.
Right. So I suppose my next question for you on the single-use plastics thing, we saw some of the coined Hateful Eight, the group of sort of group voters who stick together with Mayor Gondek. They broke ranks, but they've now come back together. They rejected your proposal for this to go to plebiscite. What was the basis for their rejection?
Well, it was an 8-6. One person had abstained who's on the fence. There's still... and there's a couple others that probably knew that the residents really would like to see this plebiscite or don't want to see this happen. Yeah. There's a lot of talk about political parties and being whipped into order. We already have a party here. It's the union-backed Calgary's Future Party, and they were whipped into shape and said, vote this way or else. So we will see what the or else is, and that'll come at the next election.
That's interesting. This is a bit off topic, but the concern, there was a lot of it over the notion of parties coming together and people knowing sort of who they're voting for, taking back that split. There's also been talks with the recall Gondek position going around now that that's an attack on democracy. Is there sort of a double message sent where unions can have an active, influential role within city council, and then citizens gathering and signing a petition, the mayor calls that effectively, and some of her pundits call that an attack on democracy?
Yeah, double standard for sure. And the double standard right now is the people calling for there not to be a party system are part of a party system. Right. That's why there's the outrage and the hair pulling, because we can't have the party system, because that would just level the playing field, in my opinion, in the big cities. Now, remember, the smaller towns, that's probably not as a big an issue.
Right.
And same with the recalls. That might not be as if, there's some issues there with smaller towns. But in the big cities, we're running parties already, or slates, to the left does anyway. So this would just, again, I think, just balance things out.
Now, just so I can kind of give the other side the benefit of the doubt, what are they purporting is the benefit of rezoning everything?
They say it's going to be faster, so it's going to speed approval processes, which granted, because it takes the public hearing and some democracy out of it, and it would lower the price of homes because we're going to be able to build homes faster. And I keep saying it's been done in other cities. It hasn't lowered the price in BC. They've done it after 6 years. Prices are actually going up. Yeah. If you knock down a $7,000 older home, and then you put 6 properties on there that are now $700,000 each, you increase supply. You didn't lower affordability. So that's the argument. I don't agree with it.
Okay, while this matter was being discussed in council, there's reports circulating that in exchange for sort of federal funding, city administration sort of agreed with the federal government that they were going to do this before it was advanced at all. Is there truth to that? And was the mayor involved?
Well, so this was what I called a bribe from the Trudeau government, saying, here's some money, upzone your city and do as I say. Some people are worried about the 15-minute cities and all these other things that they say aren't happening, but we're marching towards. Now, for the mayor or for city council to sign an agreement with the federal government accepting money on zoning that we haven't even finished public hearings, that's in contrary to the Municipal Government Act. And so there could be, I think, there's jeopardy of some legal action on that.
And sort of the angles being discussed out there on social media or whatever it may be are, one, that Mayor Gondek had no idea, which would sort of speak to an incompetence, or two, that she was actively engaged in sort of brokering this deal with the federal government, knowing her hateful eight would have her back. I know that sort of paints you in a corner, but it's either malice or ineptitude. Do you have any thoughts as to which it might be?
Yeah, well, I was pretty curious. Obviously, I was there when she said that. It was questioning administration as if she didn't know what was happening, what was signed. So there's some real, political maneuvering around that one. So yeah, I think it's suspect to say the least. So yeah, I think that's all I'll say now. But
sure. And if you don't mind, do we know that she signed some of the documents, but perhaps not knowing what they're in, or is that not known?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I will have to dig into that. Sure. But I think, that opened up a can of worms or a line of inquiry that we will see what happens, Adam.
Okay, final question for you here, I guess. And this is not necessarily directly on this topic, but more of a general question. There seems to be a sentiment that progressive politicians don't like families having a big backyard and living in what they would sort of critically say is suburban sprawl. But why should Calgarians, Canadians not be able to choose that if they want? Why is there this sort of intent to sort of stop growth on the city and just have everything grow vertically instead of into the massive space we have around this city?
I think it starts with a lot of these people in colleges and university, which I think are radicalized. And so they read these books and they say, this is what they're doing in New York or they're doing in Europe. Guess what? This is Calgary. It's cold. Bike lanes everywhere aren't working. Right. People do. We have got lots of room here to move and expand. You may want to have a condo as a starter, but then you're going to want a backyard. Maybe when they grow older, some of these younger, more, I said, leftist policy-leaning people will want a family and a backyard and a dog. We need all housing options. So let's build up and let's build out. We have to do both.
Awesome. Thanks. That is Councillor Dan McLean for Ward 13. Thanks so much for your time. And as always, I want to thank everyone at home so much for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. Hey guys, if you think that municipal officials should be focused on things like filling potholes and tackling serious crime in downtown cities instead of forcing us into living in apartments and implementing 15-minute cities, I'm urging you to sign our petition at fixourcities.com. It's time for municipal politicians to stop advancing globalist agendas and to start advancing the interests of locals in the cities that they're elected to represent.